Medieval peasants ate vegetables you've never heard of, plants so nutritious they could sustain entire villages through winter. Then suddenly, they vanished from every European garden within a single generation. But here's what's strange. Nobody complained about the taste. Someone made sure you'd never even learn their names. Here's something that'll bug you. There was a vegetable sweeter than carrots, tastier than parsnips, and easier to grow than potatoes. Medieval Europeans ate it constantly, roasted it, mashed it with butter. Kids actually asked for seconds. Then it vanished. Not because people got tired of it, not because something better came along. It disappeared because nobody could figure out how to make money selling it. Skirret was this cluster of thin, tangled roots that grew in every direction like it was trying to escape the ground. Picture a bunch of white fingers reaching out from a central point. Weird looking? Absolutely, but crack one open and you'd taste something like honey mixed with sweet potato. No added sugar needed. The problem? Those roots wouldn't cooperate. Every single plant grew differently. Some roots went left, some went right, some curled into spirals just to be difficult. When farming went industrial in the 1800s, machines needed uniformity. Straight rows, predictable shapes, crops that behaved. Skirret basically laughed at the whole concept, so seed companies did what seed companies do. They dropped it. By 1900, you couldn't find skirret in a single American catalog. Gone, just like that. Modern foragers who've tracked it down say the same thing. It's sweeter than anything in grocery stores today. The flavor never changed. But skirret was just the beginning. Because the next vegetable on this list, it committed an even bigger crime against capitalism. Now here's where things get interesting. Good King Henry wasn't just another leafy green. It was basically a cheat code for survival. Medieval peasants called it poor man's asparagus because the young shoots tasted almost identical to the fancy stuff. But here's the kicker. You planted it once, and that was it. Done. Forever. Every spring, it came back on its own. No replanting, no fertilizing, no buying new seeds. Just free food, year after year, for decades. You can probably guess why seed companies hated this plant. I mean, how do you make money selling something people only need to buy once in their entire lives? Short answer, you don't. So by the late 1800s, catalogs just quietly stopped carrying it. And here's what really gets me. The leaves packed more iron per ounce than the spinach sitting in your fridge right now. Plus, it produced fresh greens in early spring when absolutely nothing else was ready to harvest. Your garden's still frozen? Good King Henry doesn't care. The name came from King Henry IV of France, who actually encouraged peasants to grow it specifically so they'd never starve during famines. A king who wanted his people to be self-sufficient. Wild concept. The plant still grows wild across England and Germany today. But ask modern gardeners about it. Fewer than 3% have even heard the name. Which brings us to something that replaced another vegetable entirely. Here's the thing about celery. The stuff sitting in your fridge right now, it's basically a vegetable with an identity crisis. Before celery became that watery crunch stick people dip in ranch dressing, Europeans had something better. Alexander's. This plant grew wild along coastlines and tasted like celery's cooler, more interesting older sibling. No irrigation needed, no pesticides, no babying whatsoever. It literally thrived on neglect. My kind of plant, honestly. Roman soldiers carried Alexander's seeds across Europe because the stuff could sprout in conquered territory and feed troops within weeks. That's not a vegetable. That's a military strategy. So what happened? Dutch farmers in the 1600s developed modern celery, and suddenly merchants had something they could control. See, Alexander's grew anywhere for free. Celery, it needed constant attention, specific conditions, and careful cultivation, which meant farmers could charge more for it. The wild plant that fed armies got replaced by a high-maintenance diva that dies if you look at it wrong. But here's what really stings. Alexander's contained compounds that modern research links to reduced inflammation. Modern celery? Those compounds got bred out almost entirely. We traded medicine for water with strings attached. Early taste comparisons are brutal too. Writers from that era said celery actually tasted worse than Alexander's. People switched anyway, not for flavor, for profit. And this pattern of replacing self-sufficient plants with dependent ones, it gets even more obvious with the next vegetable. The brothers Grimm didn't invent Rapunzel. They named her after a vegetable, Rampion. That's what the pregnant mother craved so desperately in the original fairy tale that she literally traded her baby for it. Not magic beans, not golden apples, a root vegetable. And honestly, after learning what Rampion actually offered, I kind of get it. This plant was basically two vegetables pretending to be one. The leaves worked like spinach. The root tasted like a mild radish. Medieval families got double the food from a single planting. Pretty clever, right? But here's where Rampion ran into trouble. The root needed 18 months to fully mature, a year and a half. You could have a baby faster than you could harvest this thing. When the agricultural revolution hit and farmers started rotating crops annually, Rampion became the awkward guest who wouldn't leave the party. Now those leaves, they kept growing through winter. Fresh greens in January when scurvy was picking off your neighbors. That mattered a lot. Farmers abandoned it anyway. 2 generations. That's all it took for a vegetable that fed families for centuries to become a footnote in a children's story. The wild part? Rampion still grows in European meadows today. It hasn't been commercially cultivated in America for over 150 years, but the plant itself never actually disappeared. It just stopped being worth anyone's time. Speaking of plants that took too long for modern farming to tolerate, the next one needed even more patience. Scorzonera sounds like something you'd order at a fancy Italian restaurant, but the name actually comes from the Spanish word for viper. Why? People genuinely believed the milky white sap could cure snake bites. Spoiler alert. It couldn't, but here's what Scorzonera actually could do. Medieval doctors prescribed it for heart problems, and they were accidentally right. Modern analysis shows the root contains inulin, a fiber that legitimately supports cardiovascular health. Those old physicians didn't know the science, but they noticed patients who ate it regularly lived longer. Now, the flavor. This is where it gets interesting. People describe it as tasting like oysters mixed with artichoke hearts. Not fishy, more like that deep, savory umami quality you get from really expensive mushrooms. So why have most Americans never seen one? 2 reasons. First, the root is black-skinned and bleeds white sap when you cut it. Looks like something from a horror movie, honestly. When supermarkets started prioritizing pretty vegetables in the 1950s, Scorzonera got eliminated immediately. Second, the roots need 2 full years to reach eating size. 2 years. That doesn't work when shareholders want quarterly profits. And here's what really gets me. France still grows about 8,000 tons annually. American farmers grow essentially none. Same climate, same soil conditions, different priorities. The French kept eating their ugly, heart-healthy roots. We pick shiny vegetables that photograph well, but Scorzonera isn't even the strangest disappearance. The next vegetable vanished because it grew in the wrong place entirely. Sea kale almost went extinct, not because of disease, not because of pests, because people loved it too much. By 1800, foragers had stripped British coastlines nearly bare. Every spring, crowds descended on beaches to harvest the wild shoots before anyone else could get them. It was that good. The blanched stalks taste like asparagus married a hazelnut. Delicate, nutty, the kind of flavor that made Georgian aristocrats pay ridiculous prices at London markets. Thomas Jefferson grew it at Monticello, wrote letters raving about it, tried convincing American farmers to cultivate it commercially. Nobody listened. Here's the problem. Sea kale requires blanching. You have to cover the plant completely, block all sunlight, wait weeks for the shoots to turn pale and tender. That's labor, expensive labor. And then refrigerated shipping happened. Suddenly you could import asparagus from Peru, year-round. Cheap, no blanching required. Why pay workers to cover plants with buckets when a cargo ship does the work for you? Sea kale vanished from markets within a generation. But wait, it gets more frustrating. The plant contains glucosinolates. Those cancer-fighting compounds everyone gets excited about in broccoli, sea kale has more of them. Significantly more. We traded a nutritional powerhouse for convenience. The wild plants still cling to European beaches, legally protected now, which is ironic. We nearly destroyed it through love, then abandoned it for economics. Speaking of vegetables that confused everyone into forgetting them, Salsify earned its nickname the oyster plant for one bizarre reason. It actually tastes like oysters. Not kind of like oysters. Not if you squint and imagine. genuinely, unmistakably oyster-flavored. This made it insanely popular with medieval communities living hundreds of miles from any coastline. Seafood was expensive. Salsify was dirt cheap, so they got creative. Mock oyster soup became a staple. Fish-free fish cakes fooled dinner guests. Vegetarian dishes passed as fancy shellfish platters. My grandmother used to say, "Fake it till you make it" about everything. Medieval cooks took that literally with this root. But here's where Salsify's story takes a turn. The moment you cut into it, the flesh starts oxidizing. Brown within minutes. Ugly within an hour. For home cooks who prepared dinner immediately, no problem. For supermarkets wanting plastic-wrapped, pre-cut vegetables sitting pretty under fluorescent lights, absolute disaster. American farmers actually grew Salsify commercially right up until the 1940s. Then World War II happened. Labor shortages hit hard. Suddenly, crops requiring careful, gentle handling got abandoned for anything that could survive rough treatment. And nutritionally, this is almost criminal. Salsify contains more inulin fiber than chicory root. Your gut bacteria would throw a party. The plant still exists, by the way, produces gorgeous purple flowers, so striking that modern gardeners grow it purely for decoration. They have no idea there's a forgotten delicacy hiding underground. Speaking of vegetables that look like one thing, but secretly are another, Orach came in red, gold, green, and purple varieties. Medieval gardeners grew different colors to mark different cooking uses. The red ones went into soups. The gold ones got eaten raw. It was basically a color-coded kitchen system centuries before Martha Stewart. But here's what makes Orach genuinely superior to modern spinach. It doesn't bolt in summer heat. Regular spinach hits July and turns bitter, shoots up a flower stalk, and basically quits on you. Orach, still producing tender leaves through the hottest months. I've grown both, and watching spinach give up while Orach keeps going feels like watching someone quit a marathon at mile 3. So why did we abandon it? Popeye. Seriously. When those cartoons exploded in the 1930s, American seed companies dumped their marketing budgets into spinach. Orach quietly vanished from catalogs within a few years, not because it lost a taste test, because it lost a popularity contest to a cartoon sailor. And the nutrition difference is wild. Red Orach contains beta-cheonins, the same antioxidant pigments found in beets. Modern spinach has none. But the real death blow? A single Orach plant produces over 50,000 seeds. Gardeners saved seeds and never bought more. Seed companies couldn't build repeat customers around a plant that essentially gives itself away forever. Now compare that to the next vegetable. Same flavor profile as celery, but 10 times stronger. So strong that Victorian snobs called it peasant food. Smallage is what celery used to be before we made it boring. This wild ancestor packs about 10 times the flavor punch. One leaf in your soup, and you'd know it was there. Medieval cooks treated it like an herb, not a vegetable. A little went a long way. So what happened? Well, somewhere around 1900, American food companies decided strong flavors were peasant food. Refined people, apparently, wanted their vegetables to taste like crunchy water. So breeders got to work making celery as mild as possible, and they succeeded. Boy, did they succeed. Modern celery is basically a delivery system for peanut butter. The actual vegetable flavor, gone, bred right out of existence. But here's what else disappeared. Smallage leaves contain apigenin, a compound that researchers are currently studying for anti-anxiety effects. When farmers selected for blandness, they accidentally removed something that might have actually helped people feel calmer. The irony is almost too perfect. Victorian gardening manuals called Smallage too coarse for refined tables. Translation: rich people didn't want to eat what poor people ate, even if it tasted better, even if it was more nutritious. Now, fancy restaurants in New York are serving heritage celery and charging $40 a plate. Same plant our great-grandparents grew for free. Smallage still grows wild in European marshlands if you know where to look. But the next vegetable on our list, it faced a completely different problem. It wasn't too flavorful. It was too ugly. Here's the thing about turnip-rooted chervil. It was delicious, sweet like chestnuts, nutty like parsnips, and filling enough to get a family through winter. Medieval peasants roasted it when they couldn't afford actual chestnuts. Worked beautifully. But then came photography. The root looks like something you'd find in a nightmare. lumpy, gnarled, twisted in ways that seem almost intentional, like it's trying to look ugly. And once food advertising started using pictures instead of just descriptions, game over. Nobody wanted to buy the vegetable that looked like it might bite back. French farmers called it tubercule de chervil and grew it for 400 years straight, 4 centuries of happy eating. Then supermarket chains took one look at it and said, absolutely not. Couldn't put that next to the nice round potatoes. Might scare the customers. And there's another problem. Unlike potatoes, this root doesn't store well. It shrivels within weeks of harvest. You can't ship it from California to New York. Can't warehouse it. Can't build a supply chain around something that's basically racing against the clock. I actually tried growing this once. The roots came out looking exactly as weird as the old drawing suggested. But roasted with butter and salt? Honestly, better than potatoes. Way better. Here's what's funny though. The plant produces these delicate white flowers that attract beneficial insects. Gardens that grew it naturally had fewer pest problems. Speaking of pest problems, the next vegetable got killed by something even stranger than ugliness. Corn salad is the winter lettuce that should be on every table right now. But it's not. Here's the thing. This little green doesn't care about cold weather, frost, snow, temperatures that would turn regular lettuce into mush. Corn salad just keeps growing. Medieval farmers figured this out centuries ago and planted it between rows of grain. Free salad from wasted space. Pretty clever, right? The leaves are tender, almost buttery, and they're packed with 3 times more vitamin C than iceberg lettuce. They've even got omega-3 fatty acids. Lettuce doesn't have that, like at all. So what happened? Well, those tender leaves that make corn salad so delicious, they're also its downfall. Pick them, and within 24 hours, they're bruised and wilted. Can't ship that from California to New York. Impossible. Then iceberg lettuce showed up. That pale, crunchy, mostly water vegetable that tastes like, well, not much. But here's what it could do. Survive 2 weeks in a refrigerated truck. That was the whole game. Flavor didn't matter. Nutrition didn't matter. Shipping mattered. Europeans still eat around 30,000 tons of this stuff every year. Americans? Almost none, which is honestly ridiculous because corn salad grows wild in all 50 states. It's literally everywhere. I tried growing it last winter. Dead of January, everything else brown and frozen, and there it was. Fresh greens, no greenhouse needed. But shipping logistics weren't the only vegetable killer. Some plants got destroyed simply for doing their job too well. Hamburg parsley is basically the Swiss Army knife of vegetables. You get fresh parsley leaves up top, and down below, a thick, creamy root that tastes like someone crossed a parsnip with, well, parsley. 2 vegetables, 1 plant, 1 patch of dirt. For over 500 years, Central European cooks threw this root into every soup and stew they made. The flavor was incredible. Rich, earthy, herby. Nothing else quite like it. And here's the practical genius. That root could sit in a cold cellar from October until April without going bad. When fresh vegetables were a distant memory and winter seemed endless, Hamburg parsley kept families fed. German immigrants loved this plant so much, they hauled seeds across the Atlantic. Burpee catalogs sold it for decades. Then, 1950 hit. Gone. Why? Because modern agriculture decided vegetables should do one thing only. You want parsley? Buy parsley. You want parsnips? Different aisle, different product, different price tag. A 2-in-1 vegetable messes with that whole system. Can't charge twice if people only need 1 plant. My grandmother would have called that too clever by half. The accountants apparently agreed. The real kicker? Growing 1 Hamburg parsley plant saves the exact same garden space as growing both a parsley plant and a parsnip plant separately. It's literally more efficient. But efficiency for farmers isn't the same as efficiency for corporations. Speaking of vegetables that got destroyed by corporate logic, wait until you hear what happened to the artichoke's weird cousin. Cardoons looked like celery had a rough night and woke up with spikes. Seriously, these things are intimidating. But they're actually the wild ancestor of artichokes, and medieval Italians loved them. Here's the catch, though. You can't just eat cardoons raw. You have to blanch them first. And not blanching like throwing them in boiling water for a minute. I'm talking about piling dirt around the stalks for 3 to 4 weeks to block out sunlight. The process turns them white, tender, and removes the bitterness. That's a lot of work for a vegetable. Medieval farmers didn't mind. They had time, they had cheap labor, they had patience. But when immigrant labor costs shot up in America after World War II, crops requiring this much hand attention became financial disasters. Now here's what makes Cardoons genuinely fascinating. They contain cynerin, the same compound found in artichokes. Ever notice how water tastes weirdly sweet after eating artichoke dip? That's cynerin messing with your taste buds. Cardoons do the exact same thing. The plant itself grows 6 feet tall with these gorgeous purple thistle flowers. American farmers looked at that and thought, weed. They actively ripped it out of fields. Meanwhile, in Italy and Argentina, families still serve cardoons at Christmas dinner. Cultural tradition beat economic pressure, at least somewhere. But if you think cardoons had a strange reputation, wait until you hear about the salad green that monasteries actually banned monks from growing. Here's the thing about rocket. Monks weren't allowed to grow it. I'm serious. Medieval monasteries actually banned this salad green because church authorities believed it sparked lustful thoughts, a leafy green, causing sin. That's the reputation this peppery little plant carried for centuries. And honestly, the concerns weren't entirely made up. Medieval Europeans genuinely considered rocket an aphrodisiac. Whether it actually did anything is debatable, but the belief was strong enough that Puritan influence eventually made stimulating foods seem morally suspicious across England and early America. So rocket went underground, not literally, but culturally. American cookbooks from 1900 to 1970 basically pretend it doesn't exist. 70 years of silence for one of the easiest salad greens you can grow. Seeds cost almost nothing. Plant to plate takes 30 days. My grandmother could have grown it blindfolded, but here's where it gets ridiculous. The exact same plant came roaring back in the 90s. Italian restaurants just called it arugula and charged premium prices. Suddenly it's sophisticated, gourmet, worth $8 on a fancy salad. Same plant monks feared would corrupt their souls. Now it's on every upscale menu in Manhattan. The nutritional facts are genuinely impressive, though. More calcium than any other salad green. Glucosinolates with documented anti-cancer properties. The bitterness people complained about, that's the medicine. But rocket's story is almost tame compared to our final vegetable. This one was so useful, so self-sufficient, that letting it exist basically threatened the entire seed industry. Landcress is basically watercress's more practical cousin. Watercress needs running streams and special conditions. Landcress? Just throw it in dirt. Medieval farmers figured this out centuries ago. They planted it along the edges of paths, between rows of other crops, anywhere there was a spare patch of soil. No dedicated garden bed needed, no fuss, just free peppery greens whenever you wanted them. And nutritionally, this stuff is ridiculous. 1 cup gives you over 200% of your daily vitamin K. That's more than almost any vegetable scientists have tested. Your bones would thank you. Your blood clotting would thank you. But good luck finding it at any grocery store. Here's where it gets frustrating. When big agriculture took over in the mid-20th century, they wanted neat, organized fields. 1 crop per field, no messy edge plants. Landcress didn't fit that model, so farmers sprayed it, pulled it, treated it like a weed. The plant appeared in American seed catalogs right up until the 1960s, then gone. Poof. Not because anyone complained about the taste, because supermarkets wanted uniformity over nutrition. But the real kicker? Landcress self-seeds like crazy. Buy 1 packet and theoretically, you've got greens for life. Your kids could harvest it. Your grandkids. Which of course is exactly why no corporation wanted to sell it. 15 vegetables, 15 stories, and not one of them disappeared because we stopped liking the taste.